So, Pyrocynical and Ivory Erasmus. Yeah, we're talking about this again. I didn't think I'd really have to, considering my video was a mostly neutral stance that tried more so to help others who may want to come out about something in the future, but I'm gonna say this now, this video is not like that at all. I will be taking a firm side in this video, and it may not be the one you've been led to believe is the most rational. To be honest, my main drive for creating this video was the continued response I saw from the commentary community as a whole, thanks to some of its bigger players. I said there were plenty of lessons to be learned in my original video, but it looks like I either didn't make myself clear enough, or people saw it and as they went on with the situation thought, "Is that me? Nah, I'm good." Backing up for a second, if you don't understand what's going on, watch my original video going into the subject, but if you don't want to do that, I'll give a brief summary. Pyrocynical, incredibly recognizable commentary YouTuber that's retained relevance for the past 5 years. Started out as a Leith Yes commentary channel, but slowly differentiated from that. Ivory Erasmus, a 19-year-old musician that came out with a statement on October 29, 2020 on Twitter, accusing Pyro of grooming them at age 15 with discussions of furry inflation, farts, and other shit I just really don't want to get into right now. The commentary community makes initial statements, mostly including those stating Ivory is an unreliable source who blurred out images, and with the user being deleted, skepticism from all parties was had. Ivory released a further statement clarifying the blurred out images were of him acting in an embarrassing way, responding within Pyro and his RP with sexual remarks. He follows this up with 2 videos on Imgur showing most of their conversation uncensored, and it also came with an additional video from Pyro's girlfriend in which she basically states this happened, even being proven real by Ivory clicking on her profile afterwards to show it. Ivory figures out the way to show when the deleted user was created, and the accusations suddenly become highly plausible. The commentary community still isn't swayed, however. Ivory then gets the ability to appear on the interviewer Tommy C's channel to clarify statements, and a major discovery is found. Ivory didn't know the real definition of grooming. He explained that Pyro never actually opted to sexually interact with Ivory as themselves. He never asked for pictures, he never alluded to sexual interactions during meetups, and in general, he only really spoke sexually in the context of the role-playing. With that, it could be determined by the definition of grooming that Pyro never engaged in it, though on the likely assumption these screenshots were real, Pyro still would have interacted in a weird sexual roleplay with an underage individual as a 19-year-old adult. Around this time is when I create my video on the subject. With Pyro not having released a response yet, I still thought the commentary community, along with Ivory, had done some wrong in how they addressed the situation. That's where my video came from, and it took a neutral perspective, mostly using the drama as a jumping off point to give examples of what you should and shouldn't do. I'd say it was a pretty good video, and after it was made, on November 10th, Pyro created his statement about the entire drama, and how it was handled by Ivory. That's where we are now, in the timeline. Now, I was expecting quite a lot from this response. I saw multiple videos about Pyro being innocent of several claims pop up after it had been posted. People thoroughly believed Pyro was free of most wrongdoings, and that Ivory was nothing more than some filthy clout chaser creating their post for the purpose of smearing Pyro and getting something out of it. And then I looked at the actual post, and if I'm being 100% honest with you guys, it wasn't good. It wasn't even adequate. It was bad. Not only that, but it had straight up lies littered within it that makes Pyro look quite the master manipulator of the facts himself. Taking a look, he states, "As some of you may have seen, it's been claimed back in 2016 when I was 19 years old that I groomed an individual who was 15 years old at the time. I want to set the record straight with you all and share the truth. This accusation is 100% false and incredibly irresponsible." He goes on to admit he did indeed perform those roleplays with people and that they were real, but that, as previously realized, Ivory was not groomed. Of their claims, this is one I would hope they dropped in the future, but beyond that, he states, "He never once disclosed this fact that he was 15 at the time these exchanges commenced. He didn't include his age in his bio until he was 16, but I was not on Twitter between the 28th of December 2016 until the 29th of June 2017, as I was suspended." And here we come across our first and biggest lie. Ivory did in fact provide evidence that Pyro knew he was a minor, with him finding a point in their conversation where he stated he was underage. Some might say that isn't entirely substantial, as age of adulthood varies in different parts of the world, but Ivory did obviously know Pyro was British, and Pyro knew that Ivory was American, so it could be assumed he knew British consent laws and vice versa. If that isn't enough for you, moving to Pyro's statements about Twitter, it initially comes off as a smart move. Pyro had an air of deniability here with his account being suspended, meaning he couldn't check out Ivory's profile through it. Disregarding it would be easy for him to see after he was unbanned, Ivory actually showed a bit in one of his filmed videos showing he sent Pyro his Twitter on July 5th, 2017 while they were still talking. And would you look at that, the first thing that can be noticed next is the statement that Ivory has just turned 16 at the time, and Pyro was born May 14th, 1997, so he was 20 by now, meaning the age difference hasn't gone down at all. Still somehow not enough, here are several examples where he brings up his age being 15 on Twitter. Here are multiple other screenshots from Ivory's recording of his messages showing he mentions his mom, being at school, and so on. With Pyro confirming these messages are real, he's accidentally just played himself. All this info was already out there for the public to see, and yet Pyro acts as if this didn't happen and never addresses it. On his next point, Pyro says, "Moreover, individuals have since come forward contending that Ivory would be disingenuous about his age to proactively gain entry to other fantasy roleplay groups." And then he shows a few people stating Ivory had lied about his age. Curious he didn't also bring up these people have since retracted their statements and apologized personally to Ivory about the entire situation, saying they had bad resources. These redactions came out before his response. It's not like this wasn't available to be seen by him. It's also quite hilarious that Pyro says Ivory has no evidence of showing their age to him, despite there being tons already out, but goes on to link various posts that show no evidence themselves beyond secondhand accounts with no screenshots. Double standard? What's one of that? What's that? What's that? There's also evidence to suggest that he is engaged in fantasy roleplay with another individual similar in age to me. This individual was also not aware of Ivory's age at the time, but in this particular example, it was Ivory who very much initiated and directed the roleplay. After Ivory alleged that I groomed him, this individual that reached out to him to apologize for any hurt he may have inadvertently caused him, to which Ivory responded, "No, you're fine, I don't care." Why does he not care in this instance? Why does he remain unaffected by a similar situation with others, yet feel the need to single me out and character assassinate only me on social media? In this statement, he's once again trying to paint Ivory as untrustworthy and drama-hungry, doing similar role plays with others and initially claiming to not care about it afterwards upon getting an apology. Pyro makes an appeal to those thinking Ivory ever stated he was emotionally devastated by this in the first place, but it's clear in his twit longer that isn't the case at all. This is to bring awareness to the fact Pyro has done this with someone he knew was underage and has even now stated that he's done this kind of roleplay with others. Ivory never acted like it was an emotionally devastating event, but it could be to others who experienced it, and he wanted any other possible victims to speak up despite Pyro's large sub count. Even if Ivory was still in contact with Pyro as of September of this year, it doesn't make his story, nor most of his points, invalid considering the evidence he's given. By the end, Pyro tells people not to attack Ivory in spite of this, and while that may be a good move in general, this post as a whole was not definitive proof of anything for his side, and only really shot him in the foot even further than before. I hope you can understand this after my deconstruction, but unfortunately, a few big players in the commentary community had a different perspective entirely. One interesting detail I noticed while researching some more for this video is that the top results after typing Pyrocynical allegations include debunked, false, fake, and response. Is it me or do these search results seem to favor a certain perspective over another? Well, there's an obvious reason for that. Many big commentators like Prisonmate Luke, Diesel Patches, and to a lesser extent Omegon, all people that made videos on the subject beforehand being skeptical of the claims, thought Pyro made a great response that debunked all the claims Ivory had made, and I do mean all of them. Now, you guys know I'm not the kind of person that likes to think he's superior to anyone else, being an insecure teen, and I didn't think this would be the case, but my neutral video that wasn't even trying too hard to weigh in on the drama was one of the best videos on the subject somehow? It feels like Tom and I are the only creators with more than 50k subs that looked at all the evidence before making claims of anything, most of which I avoided directly stating at the time, as like I said in the video, I wanted to wait for Pyro's response for a full narrative to see if he'd clear anything up. Tom has done the best job out of all of us when it comes to directly, solely speaking on the drama for what it is, and yet his video is still below those who defended Pyro in search results. If you don't get what I'm saying by now, with Pyro confirming the screenshots are real, the rest of the post only showed that he was lying about a lot of shit in an attempt to discredit Ivory. The community response in general I've seen thanks to these creators makes me feel sick, angry, and everything in between, and that sucks because I'm a big fan of 2 of 3 of them, and I've spoken to the last one personally, but these videos are honestly shameful and need to be talked about. I thought the best way to do this would be by going through each video and systematically dismantling why they're bad, so let's start with Diesel.
The reason I haven't uploaded videos talking more about the subject is because I wanted real proof that Pyro was actually guilty.
Really? Your first video came out on the subject the day after the Pyro allegations first came out, and it wasn't after Ivory provided more solid evidence, it wasn't after he Ivory showed that Pyro most likely knew his age and his girlfriend all but confirmed it with her fit, but you decided to speak out about it over 3 weeks after Pyro made his response only because Tom made his video calling you out? I think the real reason you decided to respond here is because you were kind of forced into a position where you had to, and if not, you'd have just stayed away from the topic completely. And while I do commend you for making an update video, the claim of waiting until there's solid proof makes you look like a murder mystery has all but been solved and you keep screaming,
I mean, all of this is just a bunch of stupid theories. You need evidence. Where's the evidence? Without evidence, it's all bullshit. It's bullshit and I refuse to acknowledge it.
Sorry, I just needed to do that. He then discusses the skepticism he shared in the beginning thanks to Ivory's poor initial handling of the situation, and fair enough, he can be criticized for that. I talk about it in my video, but then Diesel goes on to state even after speaking with Tom, there isn't substantial evidence and brings up a few things.
So really the question is, how old was Ivory when Pyro sent that sexual furry shit towards his way? And if I'm gonna be honest, guys, I still have no idea. I did more research, Turkey Tom and I talked on Twitter, and you know, he has some pretty convincing arguments, but at the same time, I don't think he offered anything that makes the situation completely undisputed. At one point, Pyro's girlfriend says, "You're not 14 anymore," and people took this literally. Yeah, very poor choice of fucking words, but this is just an expression because Ivory only admits that the age gap was 15 and 16. It doesn't go lower than that.
Diesel. The fuck do you mean it's just an expression? Ivory stated they were 15 to 16 when they had sexual role-playing DMs with Pyro, but that doesn't mean they may not have talked to him before Ivory was even 15. It's entirely possible since the numbers are right next to each other. Just because she says 14 does not invalidate the rest of the statements where she basically says it happened. That small bit is not an indicator that it didn't happen, as these DMs have no mention of Ivory's age before this discussion, and it's implied they spoke before this in what Ivory has shown so far, and I'll have more to show later, don't you worry. So it's safe to assume she knew his age and was using it in the most literal sense.
And lastly, Pyro's girlfriend denies that Pyro did that stuff when Ivory was 15.
No, she clearly isn't. She's saying, I'm pretty sure that didn't happen. You kept feeding into it as well. As in, she's saying he wasn't forced, claiming instead that he was voluntary in it despite being, you know, a minor and all that. She even says earlier on, I'm pretty sure you liked it. You talked to me about it though. How you were so excited every time you talked, lol, and a bunch of other victim-blaming shit that clearly indicates it's real.
Now here's where I have a problem with Pyro. Whether Ivory was 16, 15, whatever, it was never shown that Pyro asked for Ivory's age. In my opinion, it is Pyro's responsibility to know the age of the person he's doing that stuff with.
Hey, this is post-editing me here, just letting you notice that there is indeed a sharp cut in between there in Diesel's video, and that's because there was a portion of it that I'm going to talk about in this next segment that doesn't quite line up considering he's cut it out and put a community post up explaining it, but yeah, just clarifying for those who may be confused. And one more thing commenting on this action as well, I do commend Diesel for deciding to do this and try and clarify, but much less people are going to see his community tab and the damage has kind of already been done. While I commend you once again for acknowledging the burden was on Pyro to ask Ivory's age before sending him sexual roleplay involving inflation, because no shit you should do that, even though Pyro definitely knew Ivory's age at the time, but what's this about an 18 plus chat? There was never anything like that stated. This wasn't on a server at all to begin with, it was in private messages between the two of them explicitly. Where did you get such an explanation? This is the first I'm hearing of it.
Now keep in mind, the conversation Pyro had with Ivory is confirmed to be real by Pyro himself, so this part's kind of alarming. We saw the first set of DMs by Ivory, but within the expanded universe, it is revealed that Ivory admitted he is a minor. Well, here's what I think might have happened. It's entirely possible that Pyro didn't see that. If you look at the DMs again, it's just all Ivory in that section, and that part about him being a minor is just kind of slivered in there. Because, you know, not everyone reads every single message someone sends, especially when they take up 100 lines of what they send. I'm not making excuses for Pyro because I'm not sure myself if that's actually true. I'm just saying it's a possibility.
Oh, of course! That one attribute we forgot most likely happened. Pyro just didn't see it. Brilliant. Listen, Diesel, you may say you aren't defending Pyro and are only bringing it up as a possibility, but this is clearly a point made from desperation. It's such a reach that I think you'd be touching the goddamn moon with it. Like I said anyway, there was plenty to go off of besides this, and it feels as though Diesel barely did the research at all and only skimmed Tom's video entirely. I mean, he doesn't even respond to all of Tom's points. It's kind of enraging. Overall, not good, Papa Diesel. Not good. And this is still the best of the three I'm talking about, because at the least Diesel admits Pyro is at fault for some of this. The others only get worse. Next, moving on to Omegon. From the beginning, you can tell what his stance on the entire thing is, outright calling the accusations false in his title. I won't be responding to everything in this video, as a lot of it is just going over the documents, and some of the points he brings up are the same as Diesel's, so yeah, I won't cover everything in it.
You have proven that you are innocent of what you were accused of, but you have also proven that at no point was age discussed.
He says this after going through everything and just saying it's true, but like I've shown before, that isn't the case at all, and anyone who's gotten to see the evidence entirely would understand this. Also, Pyro never proves age was never discussed. He just said that, and you decided to take him at his word. Out of everything, that was the bit he most poorly detoured from.
You're obsessing over Pyrocynical because no one believes you. But when you are asked to provide evidence, and I can go to the next Twitter exchange if you like, the next thread, you know, the ones where no one can reply to you unless you grant them permission because you're big and brave, yo. You said you don't need to prove this to random strangers, but you are turning to the internet with the information and then expecting them to just believe you. I do not believe you.
While it is true that Ivory could have handled the situation better, he did provide ample evidence already, and it feels as though you haven't looked over everything there was to see at the time, Omegon. I know you're generally a calm person, but I can hear the anger in your voice, and while anger is justified in many circumstances, I feel like yours may have clouded your judgment to look thoroughly and check before outright believing Pyro and thinking an immediate video would be necessary. Remember, a rushed product stays bad, but a delayed product is eventually good.
When Pyrocynical responded, you got salty because he debunked you, and he did debunk you. So you decided to continue with your attack and fail fundamentally because you are not as smart as you think you are. You have not proven, not even once, you have not proven that he knew you were 15. You haven't proven it.
Do I even need to respond to this? I'll just put up some of the screenshots that were already out there again. I'm getting tired.
What you've done is the equivalent to a false accusation IRL. You devalue others and put them under more scrutiny. You're a clout chaser, and a disgusting one at that.
That's a pretty big oof, Omegon. Not only calling them a clout chaser, but devaluing others coming out. That's just not acceptable, man. Again, I've liked you for a while, and I think you and Diesel can both do much better, so try not to make the same mistakes in the future if you can. The last video I'm about to talk about is without a doubt the worst video on the subject I've seen so far. It's incredibly biased, it denies evidence, it leaves out crucial shit like the others, it reeks of clear favoritism with no chance given to the other side, and it feels rushed as well. That video is also the top search result for Pyrocynical allegations besides his first video, Prison Mate Luke. I want to say this first. Before I saw the video, I felt quite awkward about doing this, as while I don't really watch his content much, I've spoken to Luke before watching this, and he seems like a perfectly fine guy. But I need to address this video, as besides Diesel, his video is the main reason people are adamant in thinking Ivory is a clout chaser and Pyro is innocent. Again, I won't be bringing up points I already have when I can at least, so let's get into it.
But from where I left off, I was going to wait for Pyro to respond to the allegations that Ivory, the person that accused him, made, because although the accusations against him were really serious, there was nothing definitive that said the person messaging Ivory was Pyro. The best that Ivory had was Pyro's girlfriend Ida messaging him about it, and although her messages were suspicious and really toxic, it wasn't definitive proof that the messages were from Pyro.
I'm sorry, what? Luke, what? How are these messages not irrefutable proof that Pyro did these things at the time? She states throughout that it did happen. She acknowledges that from the beginning. Her entire spiel here was trying to convince Ivory that he shouldn't have talked about it because it wasn't that serious. He liked it, and but didn't you like Pyro? Where in any of this does it imply Ida is not talking about specific events as if everyone already knows about them? How is this not substantial enough proof? This is coming from the mouth of his girlfriend, shown to be from her actual account as Ivory did this over video and clicked on said account. Has there ever been a moment in documented human history where someone has been so distraught over false accusations that they admitted to having done them, and where they said everything about them role-playing and knowing each other's ages was true? true? Has there ever been a moment where someone created an entire story that fits what the accuser stated to an extent? I say extent because it wasn't grooming but still messed up, only because they were flustered. What kind of logic, what kind of mental gymnastics had to take place for this to not be proof of it being Pyro at the time? The only reason I didn't definitively say that in my original video was because I tried to not take sides. But you did, Luke. Come on.
He also links to screenshots of people that knew Ivory talking about how Ivory would lie about their age for role-playing. And if you're lying to other people about your age, why wouldn't you lie to Pyro about it? Not only that, Ivory had not only initiated roleplay with other people that were around the same age as Pyro, and roleplayed with them at the same type of level. When one of them reached out to Ivory to apologize for what they went through, because of them, Ivory responded with, "No, you're fine, I don't care," which immediately destroys a lot of the case against Pyro. Because not only does it show that Ivory's not really angry at Pyro because of what he did, but only because of who he is and how much clout he has. It destroys the story of Pyro being this evil guy who did a horrific crime, because you're alright with other people doing it to you from back then.
Luke, you're falling into the exact camp Pyro is trying to lead you towards. You took him at his word about Ivory lying about his age. You didn't look further to find there was little evidence of Ivory doing so beyond secondhand recollection, and that the main people involved apologized. Also, what do you mean it destroys a lot of the case against Pyro? You've seen Ivory's videos with Pyro's girlfriend, I think at least, considering how bad your recollection of it was, meaning you had to have gone on his twit longer, so you have to have read it, right? Right, Luke? Right? Because if you had, you'd have seen Ivory didn't speak about this before due to Pyro's massive following, and he created the post to spread awareness of it and allow others to speak up if they had been affected. It's evident from the beginning of the twit longer. I've noticed in all these videos that Ivory claiming Pyro groomed him is played off as being malicious. But from Tommy C's video, it's clear that assumption comes from ignorance of the word's meaning. You can criticize him for not knowing it at the time, as I did, but he never said Pyro was evil or even that he wanted Pyro's career ruined. As can be seen in the interview, he just wanted it to be known and acknowledged, letting the consequences of such actions come along with that acknowledgement, whatever they may be.
It was really solid, and it's really respectable how he was able to handle something as serious as an allegation like that, and just being able to move on from it, especially since he did it in a really compact Reddit post that was really well put together. Now, I kinda wish that he would have explained his girlfriend a bit, because she was really toxic and kinda threw him under the bus, and she was like one of the main reasons people took it more seriously. But I can chalk that up to her being angry about her boyfriend being falsely accused of something, and I can understand that. No one wants someone they care about going through that, and you might not know how to handle it, so all in all, I can't really judge her for being angry, but I hope she knows how to handle this stuff better.
No, he did not respond well. You thought he responded well because, in all honesty, with how you're acting here, calling Ivory a clout chaser.
And it really shows what this person wanted, because a lot of people from the beginning were assuming that they were only doing this for clout, and they've proved it now.
Honestly, I think you were just waiting to approve of any response Pyro gave if he were to talk about it at all. How in any way did the response destroy everything? And again, his girlfriend just got angry about it? I was saying that as a joke, man. I didn't expect you to seriously say it.
Ivory said that Pyro had taken the "I don't care" screenshot out of context, then gave the full one, but it didn't really prove anything. The screenshot was the same, except with the added line of "I just need space right now to think about it," which doesn't make the "I don't care, it's fine" part go away. Saying you need space doesn't change that, and correcting it now only makes it look more suspicious. And also, there's no proof that the guy apologizing to you over DMs is the same guy.
Personally, at the least, I think Ivory did genuinely just not want to talk to this person, as they spoke in short lettering and generally spoke little. The person in the conversation even says, "I know I am, but you don't seem to be. If you really are hurt by what happened, I'm here for you." And without Ivory's response, people could think afterwards he said, "Oh, nah, bruh, it's all good. In fact, you want to get back into that?" But Ivory elaborated they just needed space from them. That's just my interpretation, however. What I really showed this clip for was to say, these two people were never linked. This is just mixed up info, Luke.
And he also links to old evidence as a way to try and show that Pyro did know his age, and that Pyro was lying about that and a bunch of other things as well. And I've looked over it, along with the other stuff he's posted, and it doesn't really show anything or disprove anything. All they have is another Discord conversation with, yet again, no proof that it was Pyro. Along with that, there was nothing that I saw that showed that Pyro should have known Ivory's age, or that Ivory told him, or anything like that.
Then you haven't looked over it. Ivory showed them mentioning being a minor, them sending Pyro their Twitter with their age on full display, and Ivory confirmed this was the same account as before by showing it. This basically confirms you barely looked at the evidence at all.
Not only did you try and destroy Pyrocynical's career over something you lied about and never brought up to him, you don't really seem to care about what he did, but only who did it because Pyro's big and you can get clout off of him. You don't care about the other people you had chats with, you were only interested with Pyro's. And you're taking away from actual victims who, because of people like you in situations like this, get taken less and less seriously with each passing instance of this. Because more and more people become bitter towards accusations or victims coming out, and they won't take them seriously.
Again with the calling Ivory a person that's only taking away from real victims and being a clout chaser. Even if Ivory doesn't care about the other instances, that doesn't make their account with Pyro any less true. Ivory's intentions have been stated. I know I'm kinda repeating myself here, but he is too, so I feel justified here. Also, real funny how he preaches about victims not being taken seriously while he doesn't take this seriously or look over everything before giving a video like this.
I gave you a chance, Ivory.
Did you really though? No. The answer is no.
If you can't prove something, and if you're just doing it for clout, maybe you shouldn't put it out there. Had you come out saying that Pyro was doing weird roleplay with underage fans, without asking their age, that would have been one thing, maybe even reasonable in a way. But you took it too far, and the only people who are hurt by this really are actual victims. I hope you're happy with yourself.
You know what actual victims are really hurt by? This video. It's clear you jumped on a bandwagon, started out with a specific mindset, and then did everything to retain that mindset and make the evidence somehow not work in your head. Your line about not showing it at all, being better, especially comes off as quite disgusting considering the circumstances. After continuing to say Ivory is part of the problem and so on, he flashes this. Should I even speak? Do I even need to say why this is wrong? Anyway, that's the last I'll cover of this video, and really, it is a perfect representation of everything wrong the community did handling this situation. Luke in general made the most flimsy accusations, he was given the evidence needed and somehow found a way to brush it off in favor of Pyro, he went along with everything Pyro said in his document, and worst of all, everyone fucking agreed. This video has over 300k views and 14k likes, whereas Tom's video, a much more fair discussion of the subject, got an 85% like ratio from people who didn't want to listen. I think this goes without saying, but Luke, I don't hate you. I think what you've done in this aspect is despicable, but you don't seem like a bad guy by any means. However, your response was reactionary, quick, and undereducated, something that's plagued many of the videos you've done in a quick fashion. And while this critique can be easily placed on Luke, it can be placed on the community as a whole as well for how they went about the situation after Pyro's response. They saw the initial allegations and were skeptical. That's a natural response in light of everything that's happened in the past few years. As Ivory kept going, some of the more serious accusations like grooming were dropped, making people believe everything he was saying may have been wrong. As Pyro is such a trusted figure, everyone was pretty much waiting for his response, and no matter what it was, I feel like a majority of the community would have just gone with it for the confirmation bias. Upon making his post, people jumped to defend him and get the drama over with by sharing the truth and letting it end there, but unfortunately for Pyro, a few people decided to keep looking around. While I'm still on the topic of Luke, something I think newer commentary influencers like him and others need to understand is their influence. Every influencer who may be unaware needs to know about the exact reach of their words to their audience. Once you create a video talking about a subject, it's paramount you have a good idea of what you're talking about and how you'll cover it the best way possible. It's okay to not be 100% accurate with everything you say, that's about impossible to do. But as long as you put in the effort and understand the concept well, it'll make for a well-informed, thoughtful video that gets its message across to the audience. When you don't do this, especially on drama, the effect will usually be in reverse times 10. People will either hate what you did and properly call you out for the terrible video you made, or the more likely option, people will still believe you and hold the wrong ideas based on nothing other than "my favorite YouTuber said so," and that's no exaggeration. As an influencer, your audience puts a certain level of trust in whatever it is you say, and if you go into a situation you know nothing about or are already biased towards, you're going to get poor results, but your audience may be willing to listen anyway, leading to the spread of false narratives. At that point, the situation has only really been harmed by your involvement, and something isn't getting its justice. I've dealt with this myself quite a while back, and though people are comparing this to Slazo and Jared based on the false narratives, I'd say this drama falls much more in line with that of Toby. When I say that, I don't mean to get too specific, as while I've seen video after video trying to compile the drama drama, I still don't fully understand it myself. I even tweeted about just how dangerous it'd be to go into it at the critical junction it was reaching. Oh, also follow me on Twitter, just do that. I compare the Pyro situation to it at this point as people are beginning to jump into the drama with fewer ideas of where everything started. They don't get the full picture anymore because we've gone down the rabbit hole far enough to assume people know, and that leads to others assuming based on video descriptions instead of looking at the full posts. People are seeing these new videos by Diesel and Luke, getting fired up about everything and trying to get their take without looking at it all because they trust their favorite YouTuber. Furthermore, like the Toby drama, the people who originally spoke on it are getting so swept up in other shit and choosing to believe one person over the other that they don't look at all the evidence themselves, or even deny stuff because they've gone so long with this narrative and would hate to be proven wrong. Finally, just like the Toby drama, I'm disappointed in this community for how it handled the situation, and it all stems from the big players everyone decided to listen to without realizing they were pretty biased themselves. Before I end this video, let me show you a new set of DMs that Ivory recently provided to a select group of people that should be released to the public possibly on the same day this video goes up. Hey, me and editing again. Yeah, this came out the day after I recorded this. Oops. Within, it details Ivory having a conversation with Ida on Discord about wanting to get with Pyro. We can confirm that this is her, as later on in the conversations, Ivory is given shots of her with Pyro, and while this image is unable to be found anywhere else, it also matches with the decor of a post Ida made on social media. Getting into the screenshots themselves, the first one actually shows Ivory stating his age plain as day right there. The context around this is that Ivory is worried around their feelings for Pyro and if he'll be weirded out by it, and Ida reassures him, saying he might be open to doing that despite Ivory's age. This can only be chalked up to Ida's own interpretation, but we can tell for sure that there's no way she wouldn't have mentioned his age to Pyro at some point after this conversation if he didn't know already. I'd say this is pretty damning. After all of this, I think it's finally time we accepted a few key truths. 1. Pyro knew about Ivory being 15 while they were roleplaying, and his girlfriend knew as well. 2. Pyro would go on to lie about this without sharing any proof of his own that the statement was untrue. 3. The biggest people that decided to talk about this situation fucked up beyond belief by going about it in the way they did, and in the end, it makes them all look willingly idiotic. 4. This community has a problem preaching about victims needing to speak out and then not doing anything when it's with someone they actually like. 5. Ivory did not lie about almost anything they said. While they presented their arguments poorly and came off as sketchy for not knowing the true meaning of grooming, it doesn't make him any more invalid with the good follow-ups he gave. Finally, 6. Pyrocynical is not a groomer, but he sent long, inappropriate messages to Ivory on a consistent basis, knowing his age and proceeding despite that. The commentary community needs to acknowledge this, his fans need to acknowledge this, and more than anything, he needs to acknowledge this. It isn't nearly as bad as grooming, but it's still messed up on a few levels, and whatever consequences Pyro gets for this, he'll need to accept them. If he admits to it, at the least, he'll look like a slightly bigger man than before. As a person that has liked his content, I don't think he should lose his entire career, go off the internet entirely, and so on. I'm not wanting to ruin everything he's built up. I just want proper justice for those affected in this mess, and I want Pyro to be upfront with people instead of lying to them. That's the video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later.